Welcome in, everybody, to another week of UFL Weekly, where my good friend and I sit down and talk about all things UFL weekly. I am Kyle Krajewski, joined by this beautiful Mr. Zach Cole. Zach, how are you this week?
Um, Incredible. I know we're a day late, $1 short this week, but that's all right. We're still here. We're living up to the name weekly. But it's things are going well.
Yeah, so we are coming at you a day later, recording this on a Thursday when these typically come out on Thursdays. So
hmm
you're most likely listening to this on a Friday or any day after. We are recording this on March 7th, which means we've got, as of release day, March 8th tomorrow, 22 days until UFL kickoff on March 30th. It's coming.
hmm
Before we get into what we're talking about today, we are UFL Weekly. You can follow us wherever, basically social media wise, Instagram and Twitter at UFL_weekly. Instagram, I'm primarily using as, hey, new show, check it out. Where Twitter, or X, I'm reposting, retweeting, sharing any current news, active things between the league. Um, TikTok will be active during the season more. Don't
hmm
worry about that. And then if you're watching us, you can listen to us on wherever you get your podcast if you just want to hear our beautiful voices. And if you're listening to us, you can check other podcast platforms. Or if you are interested in seeing what we look like, find us on YouTube, UFL Weekly. We can be found UFL Weekly, all podcast platforms, or on YouTube or social media networks, wherever you're looking for us.
hmm
Um, so, with that quick bit of housekeeping out of the way, we've got spring football, UFL football, in 22 days. 23 technically from today, kicking off March 30th, and something that completely went over our heads as of schedule release. I literally noticed it this week and just told Zach, and he found out today. Kickoff is Easter weekend. I think last year was kind of for us, it was like, oh, Easter football. This is huge. Loving it. This year, we got kickoff on Easter weekend. So, go find some eggs in the morning. Easter Bunny does a little bit of hiding in the mornings overnight. Then at noon Eastern, you get to sit back and relax Sunday, March 31st, and watch DC Defenders at San Antonio Brahmas. Just loving life.
It
I'm pumped.
it it almost kind of feels like Christmas or Thanksgiving, like masquerading here in the spring. I mean, we you can have that nice meal in the morning, and then when you're all full and everything, you can go sit and watch some football in the afternoon, which is pretty cool.
This is one of those things I wish they were hyping up more, like
hmm
commercial wise, just seeing on your social media feeds. Easter football, kind of like
Yeah,
Christmas NBA games or Thanksgiving football. Like
yeah.
Easter football, I feel like could be huge. Put it right next to some golf on spring Sundays or spring weekends. Um, switch between the action. You're watching some PGA golf, some tours. You could switch right into some UFL football. I feel like this should be kind of like expressed more. I kind of feel like it should be shoved in our throats. Easter football, enjoy it. Something you can do in the afternoon where you've had your breakfast, your brunch, you've had your morning of the day. Now you can sit back, relax, and I don't know, have a uh, mimosa while you're watching some football.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that it managed to line up this way this year. I think if I remember right, Easter was in the middle of April last year. That you might have to fact check me on that one,
Yeah,
but
we
I
had
think
it. We had a mid-season UFL or
yeah,
XFL, USFL Easter
I
weekend.
want to say maybe week 4 or something like that of the XFL it was last year. Anyhow, it's kind of I think that's why this kind of slipped under the radar this year is because Easter is so early. I mean, it's really abnormal to have it fall right at the end of March. So I mean, I'm going to give us a pass and say that's the reason why we overlooked it for for the last few episodes there.
Yeah, fact checking ourselves. Last year, the XFL had some football on for Easter weekend. USFL had not kicked off yet. They kicked off the week after.
Gotcha.
So XFL missed the chance of being uh, Easter football day. And now it seems like they're missing the chance to really hype it up this year. But who knows? got 22 days. Who knows? Maybe the
Yep.
week before we'll see a ton of Easter football is on its way because that's a selling point in my opinion.
It's kind of funny, and it's to no fault of the UFL at this point. I mean, they're just
Yeah.
trying to get their feet on the ground, but it kind of feels like everything is happening like a day or two before it's supposed to. You know what I mean? So maybe who knows? Maybe we'll get like a full on marketing blast in 2 weeks on Friday, where they're just like Easter football, Easter football.
Yeah, kickoffs this weekend. Easter. Enjoy it.
Yeah, and like I
Um,
said, to no fault of their own, this has just been chaotic since the announcement, and kudos to them for getting to this point and having it be as coordinated and organized as it has been.
yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a ton of stuff coming out of training camps and kind of
Yeah.
easing right into our first topic of conversation here. Media days have taken place yesterday and today as of this recording. March 6th and 7th, they kind of split up the teams and going into the production booths, doing a bunch of like solo player shots, showing off
Mhm.
uniforms. So that's kind of been taking place these past 2 days. So I think that's probably where they'll get a bunch of their B roll for these commercials, getting a bunch of people hyped for
Yeah.
UFL football coming soon. So instead of kind of pulling from last year's clips, where they probably will still, now they've got like, hey, these are the players you're going to be watching on the weekends this spring.
Mhm.
Let's showcase them. Get some commercials put together around them. So I think we're kind of seeing that take place literally today and the day before. So we're kind of seeing that take place.
Yeah, it's been cool to see some of the social media posts too. I mean, we don't officially. I know we were talking during the week. We were kind of hoping to maybe talk about jerseys and uniforms this episode today. They haven't all been officially released yet, in according to that PR page or according to any of
Yeah,
their official accounts. So, but it's been cool to see some of the uniforms kind of come out through those media day type things that the players have been doing. So, I
yeah.
gotta say,
We
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say we've had. I think this past weekend there was rumor or just kind of saying like, hey, jerseys are releasing this week. So I was hoping pushing this recording a day would have allowed us to be like, oh, they officially announced or showcased the jerseys or uniforms this season
Yeah.
today. But unfortunately, no like official announcement. But
Mhm.
media day has been taking place, and they're all wearing what I can only assume is the UFL 2024 uniforms and jerseys.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, just my own personal opinion, they aren't completely different. So I can understand
Mm-mm.
why they're not like, hey, new uniforms, check them out. It's pretty much the same, both for XFL and USFL. Um, but kind of going back to what you were saying about social media, guys, feel free to engage with. I'm not saying engage with us. Engage with UFL constantly on Twitter specifically. I'm seeing, I think specifically the showboats, but a lot of these other teams are basically saying like, "Hey, we got practice today. Who do you want to see more of?" Kind of saying like, "Hey, which player do you want me to like interview or talk to today? Who do you want to hear more from?" Interact with that. I mean, I think it's awesome to see that they're just like, hey, kind of keeping it a little bit small and kind of engaging and be like, hey, fans, what are you interested in? Let them know. If there's any specific player you're curious about that you maybe haven't seen, check them out on Twitter or Instagram. They are, as far as I can tell, very engaging. These social media users or social media employees for these teams are actively engaging on Twitter and Instagram specifically.
And how many professional sports leagues can you say that actually happens? I mean, even going down to like the minor leagues of baseball or hockey, there's still not a ton of fan interactivity. I mean, some teams maybe here and there, but like the UFL, I mean, they're trying to make this as accessible to fans as possible. They want people to interact, and that's, I mean, coming from two marketing majors, college marketing guys here. I mean, that's fantastic. That's how you build that user base that's going to just keep coming back, and they're going to be recurring customers essentially. So it's really cool to see that they're full on buying into this concept of like we want this to be a fan driven league.
Yeah, so engage, and then back to uniforms and jerseys. From what I'm seeing, nothing different. The only primary differences are the UFL logo, and I think I saw a few teams kind of have a little bit with the wings of their kind of shoulder pad areas, just a little bit shifting differences to fit in the logos.
Mhm.
Nothing too crazy different, but again, nothing's been like officially announced what these uniforms and jerseys are. For all we know, they're wearing completely different uniforms in these media day, I guess, recordings. But I can only assume they're similar and looking identical to what they're wearing in these media day kits. Um, but yeah, so no big, hey, new jerseys, new uniforms so far.
Yeah, and, Kyle, real quick, I just wanna hop in. One of these uniforms are one of my, like, little nerdy obsessions. I think they're awesome, but this guy that I follow on Twitter, I just wanna shout him out real quick. His name is Paul Lucas, and his is at Uniwatch. He's done a compilation of kind of all of the news, the relevant news about, the UFL and the jersey releases and everything, and he's got screenshots from the media days and, just TikTok pictures and player pictures. It's really kind of a cool compilation where he's trying to throw together what the combos look like, what the team's official uniform release is going to look like. So that's all. Again, he's at UniWatch on Twitter or on X, but pretty cool stuff there. He's got an article out today on it.
Yeah, if you're also a big fan of, I guess, uniforms and how things look, check out NFL Fashion Advice on Twitter as
Hmm.
well.
Yep.
They constantly are having conversations about uniforms, specifically NFL. But I mean, I'm scrolling right now and it's MLB and college basketball. Basically, just showing the love for uniforms and jerseys and just how they look on a professional sports team. So I can only assume that with announcements to UFL uniforms, we'll see some commentary there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So that was media days. Next up, some rumored scrimmages between these UFL teams as uh, training camp kind of continues on. I almost called it spring training, but that's a completely different sport and still technically true. Uh, Scrimmages kind of kick off this weekend. I think I saw Monday as the scrimmage day start. I think that was straight out of the mouth of Coach Anthony Becht of the Battlehawks. But the rumored matchups here and kind of half confirmed. Battlehawks are facing the Stallions, Defenders versus Panthers, Brahmas Roughnecks, and then Renegades Showboats. Just seeing players v players, some basically team v team action in training camp. Get these players getting some live football kind of happening in practices before games kick off in 20 plus days.
Yeah, and out of these rumored matchups here, I mean, it's kind of hard not to be really intrigued by the Battlehawks and the Stallions. I mean,
Yeah.
we see the former champion with who is, I guess, the assumed. We'll get into some of the odds, but the assumed going to be champion of the UFL as well, against the Battlehawks, who actually have leapfrogged the Defenders, kind of interestingly, as the favorite on the XFL side. But again, we'll break down the odds in a little bit here. So I think that that's the one that stands out to me the most. Outside of that, I mean, the Renegades are the reigning XFL champs, so it'll be cool to see them get back on the field again. And just kind of some interesting matchups. And we talked about it a little bit already, Kyle. These teams are practicing together. Now we're going to see some other teams scrimmage each other.
Yep.
I'm just kind of, yeah, it looks like it's all an XFL against a USFL matchup here. So
Yep.
again, we're trying to foster those trades, show off the players to each other's teams, and hopefully get some transactions moving here.
Yeah, and I think day to look at. I mean, today's the 7th. This releases on the 8th, and on March 10th, they have to trim down to 58 players on the
Yep.
rosters, where training camp began with 75. So cuts are going to be happening. Player movement's going to
Yep.
be happening in these next 2 days. And then March 23rd, week before season kickoff, they got to trim that back down to 50.
Yep.
So these next 20 days, these next 15 days, we're going to see players move, and these scrimmages, these intra-team practices are helping foster that. Saying
Yep.
like, oh, like you're seeing this guy play over here. Are you interested? I'm interested in this guy, and I think that's going to really show up a lot more in these coming weeks, especially after these scrimmages.
Yeah, and the football coach in me is saying that these are also an awesome time for these teams to really kind of get some live action together because it's
Yeah,
hard to you're constantly practicing against yourself and your own team, and your players know your own players, and I know that these guys have only been together for a couple weeks now, but I mean, getting to hit someone else is always kind of a big milestone, and that really can kind of point out some areas of need or some areas of strength for these teams. So I think it'll be we're going to see a little bit of a flurry of transactions afterwards, just due in part to, oh, maybe we need to bulk up our line, or oh, maybe our run game needs a little help, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, and also helps answer lineup competitions. I think we have a few
mhm.
quarterback matchups, I guess QB competitions happening, some special teams competitions taking place.
Let's say some kickers.
Um, yeah, so I think we're going to be seeing a lot of these answers come about through
Mhm.
the PR waiver wire coming up in these next couple weeks, especially this weekend.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And then two bit of news, I guess player specific news that I felt were kind of the more prominent ones of the past week. This is the saddest one. Battlehawks wide receiver Jacquard Pearson is going to IR.
Mm.
He was the wide receiver standout of the XFL last year on the Sea Dragons, now on the Battlehawks. He is thankfully not out for the season. Suffered a knee injury, but not a season ending or career ending knee injury. And head coach says it'll be 6 weeks. I think that's their timeline of IR is 6 weeks. So that's starting, I think, now, and not necessarily 6 games, but 6 weeks. And the other piece of news here is defenders kind of re-signed or kind of return the 2023 XFL sack leader Devin Bellamy. My brain melted there. Bellamy. So he was on the defenders last year, and I think he was non-committal up until this past week. And then, I mean, just also pointing out in 2022, he was all USFL for the Breakers. So a familiar player on both the XFL and USFL side, kind of making his I guess return or official return to the UFL.
I'm gonna flawlessly segue this one into our next segment here. It's kind of interesting that we're seeing a guy from the Battlehawks who's poised to be a big time star in Jacor Pearson out for a few weeks, and we're seeing a guy who clearly helped out the defenders, the DC Defenders defense, and Bellamy return to their team. But the odds are still kind of inverse according to DraftKings for the overall championship. So we pulled the odds. Kyle's got them all listed out here for us. Kyle, I'll throw it over to you. You can go ahead and read through them here.
All right, let me run through this. DraftKings put some UFL odds up for a season champion, not division champions or kind of record wise. Just the only ones available currently as of March 7th are the championship odds. And just going down the list. And if you're watching, I'll have them to the side here. Um, Birmingham Stallions are starting out at the top, plus 300. And now that I'm starting this, I should have started from the bottom. Um, Stallions are at the top. They are currently back-to-back USFL champions, and DraftKings or these odds makers currently believe that they will be back-to-back-to-back champions with this plus 300 line. Coming in at second and third, tied for the same odds, are the St. Louis Battlehawks and the DC Defenders. And right behind them are the Arlington Renegades at plus 475. So we're starting off with the USFL team and back to back to back XFL teams. And then we got the Houston Roughnecks at plus 650, Memphis Showboats at plus 800. And then finishing off here is Michigan Panthers at 1300 and the San Antonio Brahmas at plus 1400. So we got USFL, XFL, 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 UFL, USFL, 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 and then XFL down at the bottom here. Uh, right off the bat, Zach, what are your thoughts?
I really think that the Defenders and the Renegades can both be a little upset with these odds. I mean, of course, we know Vegas knows all, and they got the inside. They know more than the head coaches know, I would think. But I mean, I think DC was just absolutely fantastic in the XFL last year, and to see them as the tied for second slash third favorite odds here, that that kinda would irk me a little bit, and then the Renegades won the XFL last year, and
Yeah.
you can see that they're 4th favored in the league, so I don't know, I would say that those 2 stand out the most to me. Outside of that, I don't think that there's any real surprises here I mean, Michigan Panthers and the Brahmas were both not very good in their respective leagues last year, so it doesn't surprise me to see them down at the bottom, and the Stallions, I guess are just a force to be reckoned with now. So overall, I would say that the Defenders and the Renegades probably have the most room to be upset.
Yeah, I feel like it's weird seeing the USFL champion up there at the top and then the XFL champion down coming in at fourth. But something to note is that the Renegades won the championship with a rough record season
Yep.
wise,
Hmm.
but they also, I, these teams are completely different than what they were last year. So it's weird to say like, oh, the same team. Like we're not going to go to the NFL and say, oh, the Chiefs are going to come in fourth. They have the fourth best odds after winning the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
No, technically not. I mean, technically out of 8, they'd be probably a lot lower comparatively. But you get the gist. These teams are completely different than they were
Hmm.
12 months ago, 9 months ago. So even just 4 months ago. So these teams, these odds are very much not what they were, not based on, who they were, what their team was last year. Especially, it's crazy. I realistically though, if I'm putting money on this, I'm going right to the Defenders because this team looks great, and I can only assume that they got better. A lot of their playmakers from last season, Teamu and Abram Smith, returning, and they looked unbeatable last year for
Hmm.
except for a small a couple games there, and now they've got the second best odds to win the whole thing again. Who knows? That's one. I'm just stating it right now. That's a team I expect to be in the championship or at least fighting for that title. Solid odds there. And then the Stallions, man, they look good on paper. They look just as good as they were, if not better than last year. So I can't say I'm surprised seeing them up there. And then the Battlehawks. Uh, I have a feeling they didn't take into account losing Pearson,
Hmm.
but if he's expected to be back mid-season or late season, who knows? Maybe he's kind of the juice that this team will need going into the end game.
Yeah, I think the underlying kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Idea. I don't know. It'll come to me. The underlying motivation, I think that's what I'm looking
There it
for,
is.
is that we are not necessarily recommending that anyone bets on these right now because you nailed it. The rosters are completely different. They're not the same at all. So, really, outside of seeing maybe a stud player here or there on one of the rosters and thinking, man, that guy's a real difference maker, we don't know how these teams are going to play together, mesh together, etc. So, I think that of course, I'm not going to tell you who to bet on or what to do or anything like that. But I think that this season, the inaugural season for the UFL, is not the time to bet on a champion. I think maybe take a week to week approach and kind of go that route instead. But, if you're feeling lucky, obviously there's 3 teams here at the top that are kind of separating themselves from the rest of the pack, and they're assumed to be the best. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think mentioning this, we're not here to give gambling advice. Although go DC,
Not
but
this week anyway, right?
not this week. Not this week. But right now, it's more just to kind of highlight what the odds makers are looking at or what they're seeing in this. I guess how this league is currently breaking up in kind of a power ranking list. So
Hmm.
this isn't our power rankings. This is how Vegas is looking at these teams as potential champions
Hmm.
of the UFL. So good luck, Stallions and Battlehawks. Looks like Vegas has you guys kind of making it to the championship.
Hmm. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, Zach. That's all I've got this week. I don't know about you.
I think that's good for me. It was a unfortunately not super eventful week. We got the media day kind of teased this week or these last couple days here today, yesterday. But outside of that, not a ton of news this week.
But we say not a ton of news, but every day there's a bunch of news, player movement,
Mhm.
player activity on training camp.
Of
We're
course,
here
of
to
course.
kind of highlight, I guess, the larger scale
Yeah.
news, the ones that we kind of seem, I guess, broadly relevant. But every day there's news. The UFL PR feed is active, and I bet you in the coming weeks with these player transactions and trades, we'll probably be seeing a lot of movement, a lot more to talk about in player specifics there.
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of coming weeks, we will be off next week. I will be in Iceland, so I will unfortunately be unable to hop on mic and chat some UFL. Zach, still be active on the socials, so don't worry about that. Especially if you're intently looking at what we're reposting on Twitter. I doubt you are, but you never know. Um, so feel free to skip over looking at your Spotify, your Apple Podcast, or your YouTube subscriptions, looking for us next week. We will be taking a quick break, coming at you the next week to talk about any player movement thing, how the past 2 weeks have shaken up.
Mhm.
So look for that in 2 weeks.
Can't wait. Counting down the days.
Counting down the days. We're almost there. 22 days as of this release. So thank you for tuning in. Just to reiterate, if you are watching us, feel free to listen to us and find us on all podcast platforms. If you are listening to us, feel free to watch us on YouTube, subscribe, comment. If you're listening on Spotify, I always like to leave a quick little poll or question, just to, I don't know, be a little bit more engaging. Feel free to interact with that. I think the one week I said, how do you feel about the XFL kickoff? The other week was like, are you planning on attending a game? Just basic questions. I'm not asking for your social security number.
This week will
Feel
be,
free.
did the Jacquard Pearson news make you cry too?
It They made me cry. I wept
100% yes.
for sure. But yeah, interact with us, follow, comment, subscribe. It all
Mhm.
means a lot. Really helps us out and just makes us feel good inside.
Absolutely.
So, with all that, Zach, it was a pleasure chatting some UFL with you. As of this release, we've got 22 days until Easter weekend, UFL kickoff weekend, and I can't wait. So, thank you for tuning in.
See ya.